Oh, you got that.
Yeah, well. Thank you so much, Doris. Appreciate you.
Can I get your attention, please? You're so responsive. So, we are going to do TMA on taking care of the elderly. Tom's going to be our main speaker, and I will introduce him in just a minute. But for CR, my organization, Community Renewal, we have so many poor people that come in that move from one part of the country to here to take care of their aging parents. So a lot of people don't know that. But it's what happens. The problem is when the parents die, they don't have any money. So that's why they show up at our place. So I'm going to use one story just to start out with. And there's a million of them. Where's Dave? Where did he go? Oh, there he is. So I promise I'll only do one story up front. So years ago I had a couple that were in my parents' age group. So they were 20-some years older than me. Hi, Andy. So she would complain to me about him being passive and sitting in a chair and watching TV, which is part of the elderly dilemma, and was complaining about that. Well, she had gone to a doctor and she had a little mole on her back, but the doctor told her it was nothing. Well, a few weeks or a few months later, she went back in and he goes, "You have 2 weeks to live because you have metastasized cancer from the mole on your back." So she called me and she said they had a Pentecostal background, but they were at Christ Community. And what had happened was he, because of his background, didn't allow her to share with any of the family about her disease. So he said, if you're familiar with this, if you do a negative confession, it'll come about. So she had a boundary in terms of not sharing. So she called me and asked me to meet with him. So I met with him at a restaurant, and as I opened up the box, he started screaming and crying in the restaurant. So as a good therapist, I thought this is probably not the best place for anybody to scream and cry. So I said, "Could you meet me at the office?" So he came to my office, and as I listened to him, he had a bunch of spiritual issues that I thought could be addressed. So we did that, and then he met with, Wormsley was the pastor at Christ Community during that time, and Wormsley said almost the same thing that I said. So what happened was that her daughter, who was a medical doctor, came into town and found out that the doctor that she had was incompetent. He had lost all the records on the cancer. So she was in this dilemma, and she called the doctors in Christ Community, and they said, "You need to be on interferon, but it's going to knock you down. But it's probably one of your only chances to beat the cancer." So for 6 months, she was on interferon, and he read the Bible to her every day, all day long. Out of that, he became the spiritual leader in the family, which was one of my goals in the first place. And as he became the spiritual leader in it, she was completely healed of cancer. No more cancer at all. So I went to her funeral 23 years later, and she lived all that time without any major illness until she died. So I have seen lots and lots of amazing things with the elderly, and sometimes we give up on them too quick. My wife and I were talking about it yesterday because my board president is sick. He is got throat cancer, and they had radiation and chemo, and is struggling. We were just talking about the dying process, not that we're old or anything. So Anyway, to me, one of the things that you're looking at is many, many aspects in terms of the elderly. And Tom Hruska is going to share with us. And Tom is at New Life Community Church of the Nazarene. And he has a ministry to elderly, which is called Fourth Quarter. And he was a college professor. We were trying to talk about this over lunch. He was a college professor at Taylor University, and he used to do math for fun. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of who Tom is. So he's going to come up and share about the elderly.
Well, one of the things I learned about Randy today is that he's ambidextrous and he was writing with his left hand. And one of the important things I know about left-handers, because I am one, I was told this by a speech therapist. She's actually Catholic. I was in a university Christian fellowship group in college with all sorts of people. But left-handed people are all brilliant and brain damaged. I like to say I was a failed college. Never mind. One of the things I've learned is I have to stay on script or I get into deep trouble. A couple of questions for you. How many of you attended church where more than half of the people are over 50? Okay, quite a few of you. How many attended church where almost everyone is under 40? Okay, we got one, I think. A question, if you had an older relative or friend who needed assistance and support, how many of you know who in your church you would contact for help? Okay, that's good. Some of you do. All right, well, we're talking about older adults today. I have to keep reminding myself that I'm getting older because I'm a boomer. And you know, we boomers think we are immortal and invincible. We will always be young.
Amen.
A few weeks ago, I received a warning sign. I came down with a cough, then bronchitis, then pneumonia. And then I thought, wait, this is what happens to old people. Ouch. And a couple weeks later, just to add to it, I opened a fortune cookie to find this message. You are going to have a very comfortable old age. Oh, how comforting that was. So when we talk about older adults, we are ultimately talking about all of us. Just not yet some of you. Okay, I know this works. I know it works. What happened? Are we, did this die?
It's not on. Hold on, Tom. We're finding out.
Okay, well, anyway, Ed Dennis and I have been working this year to establish a citywide ministry called the Fourth Quarter, which is what that says up there right now. It's up. There we go. I lost the R somewhere. I don't know what happened to that. Now, in basketball and football, the fourth quarter is often the most exciting, decisive part of the game. And in the same way, the fourth quarter can be the most important part of our lives. Our goal is to encourage churches to strengthen or establish older adult ministries and to call older adults to service and discipleship. Now, here's a great question. Why are they still here? I wonder how many pastors ask themselves that question. The they, in this case, are the older adults in the church. How often do pastors wonder why God doesn't just take them to heaven? Of course, pastors may think that about some of the younger adults in the church, too. How often do pastors feel like older adults become obstacles in the advancement of the kingdom? We've always done it this way, they say, or why are we being pushed into the background? The music we sing has no substance. I like to sing hymns from the hymnal. No one ever visits us anymore. Or maybe it's the older adults who ask the question a little differently. Why am I still here? What am I good for? How can I go on after my husband dies? Why am I still here? The goal of older adult ministry is to answer those questions, both for those frustrated pastors and for the older adults themselves. Well, from the perspective of the church, there are at least three ways to view older adults. There is the why are they still here view, otherwise known as the pain in the neck view. That's certainly one way to view them. However, there's another story to tell about older adults. In many churches, older adults form the backbone of the church. In many churches, it is older adults who mow the lawn and kill the weeds and clean the church and serve on the board. But Ryan Burge has a warning for those churches. He's an expert on the role of religion in society. He recently observed that many churches are going to have a crisis in the next few years as those older adults who do so much start slowing down. In fact, it is already happening. Burge warned that the baby boom generation began with people born in 1946. That means that there are a lot of boomers in the pews who are in their 70s. I think we can all admit that lots of people begin to slow down as they move into their 7th and 8th decades of life. That will lead to many churches losing a significant portion of the human capital that keeps their church running. He goes on, things are fine until they are not. Pastors need to find ways to encourage members of Gen X and millennials to take on some leadership roles in their church. Boomers need to have someone to hand the baton to, or it will be rough sailing for American Christianity. Well, he's right. If you have a significant number of older adults in your church, and especially if they are actively engaged in churches, you are finding that, in service rather, you are finding that every year some of them withdraw from service or reduce their commitment because they are slowing down or because they have there's an illness of their own or of a family member. For many years in our church, Bill was there every Sunday morning early to open up the church. He was there early every Wednesday morning to pick up the trash, kill the weeds, clean up the parking lot, make repairs. But he's 80 now. His wife has Parkinson's, and he has reduced his commitment. Then there's Brian, who has always been an anchor in our church. He's now assisted living, kind of living in a brain fog, and limited in what he can do. So churches do need to be looking for replacements as key members age out of service. That brings us to a third view of older adults. The good news is that there's another side to the aging of the boomers. They're not all done. In fact, more people in the United States, more boomers, all of them boomers, that are turning 65 than in any year in the American history. You're turning 65 this year? All right. Last year. Okay, 66 this year, that's all right. You still have, anyway, you still have maybe like another 15 or 20 good years. Don't shake your head at me. You know, that boomer age wave is going to continue until 2029 when the last of them hit 65. Of course, 65 isn't a particularly magic age. But many will have 15 or 20 more good years for service. And beyond that, the Gen X generation isn't that much smaller. For years to come, there will be a continuing wave of new retirees who are trying to figure out what they can do in retirement. This is the great opportunity that churches have with older adult ministry. Older adults can be an opportunity for the church, not a burden. So pastors should not be asking, why are they still here? They should be asking, what can we do with them? Well, how do we make that opportunity into a reality? We can do it with a well-designed, well-executed older adult ministry. Such a ministry should have at least 3 parts. First part is connection. That's the simplest and most visible. It's what most people think of when they think of older adult ministry. It involves bringing people together for meals, trips, outings, all those good things. Just getting together. It is a vehicle for fellowship in the church, and it addresses one of the most important challenges that older adults face: isolation and loneliness. It's also the foundation for the other parts of older adult ministry, and I'll explain that in a minute. Connection will not be the same in every church. In my church, we don't even have a formal older adult ministry. Most of our people are older, so we don't try to carve out a special group for them. But we do have a potluck dinner every Wednesday night. Some of our people go every month to the luncheon at Laurel Valley Nazarene Church, which has a huge, they have 200 people there. They have 3 times the number of people for their senior adult luncheon that we have in our whole church. And then there are 2 people in our church who contact about a third of our congregation every week by phone. Well, the second part of older adult ministry is caring. Every church does this, sometimes well, sometimes badly. We visit people in the hospital, we grieve with those who have lost loved ones, we prepare meals for those who have had surgery. Our church has a benevolence fund to help with emergency needs. We also have relationships with Pima Council on Aging and Interfaith Community Services. So when someone needs rent assistance or transportation, we'll point them toward agencies that can help. When rents skyrocketed, we not only found rent assistance for them, but we moved several of them into less expensive apartments. Our food distributions provide an important supplement to our older adults with limited budgets. And we fail. Sometimes no one tells us that someone is in the hospital. This drives us crazy. And then she wonders why no one came to visit. Has that ever happened to anybody? All the pastors are going, yeah, that sounds familiar. We've had people who fell and remained on the floor a lot longer than we would have wanted. One time, a woman was having knee surgery, and the lady who did a lot in the church kitchen got up on Sunday morning and said she was going to coordinate meals for the woman. There was this awkward moment as our pastor realized that a few months ago, a man in the church had had knee surgery, and no one did anything for him. The challenge for an older adult ministry is to be consistent and complete. And we will never be perfect at it, but consistency and completeness should be our goal. And connection is a key part of consistent caring. When older adults are connected, they know about each other's needs. They will work together to meet those needs and let the pastoral staff know when more help is needed. There's one other thing about caring. Even if no one in your church is over 40, you still need an